All right. So today I'm joined by Juliana. Juliana, I met about a month ago, I think, and she's had a very intense healing path, I think, and I'm very excited to talk with her today to share her healing story. I know a bit about Juliana, but there's also a lot that I am curious to hear more about in her whole healing story. So, hey, Juliana, how's it going?
Hello, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So maybe let's start with, yeah, where did this whole thing start for you? Your healing
Yeah.
journey. Maybe start with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it actually started. I was at a birthday party and one of my friends was lifting me up and I hit my head in like an iron thing. I can't remember the word, but I ended up having getting a concussion.
Yeah.
And so in the beginning it was quite bad, but I mean I wasn't much aware about like concussion and all of that, how serious it could get or how it worked actually. So, I mean,
Yeah.
in the beginning, it was mostly trying to figure out like what should I do, what should I not do,
Mm,
um and quite quickly, like my doctors and everything were like, you have to get back to work and just kind of just starting my life a bit again.
mm.
Uh,
So with the concussion,
and
it wasn't like, was it very severe when it happened, or was it more something that just you started to have longer term symptoms from, or how did that play
uh,
out?
So I mean, it hurt a lot when it happened, and I get like
Yeah.
a big like mark in the face. But I mean, I was not thinking at all that it was ending up being a concussion. So I was just
Okay.
like, whatever, I see what happens. And then I could like from the next day, I could already feel that I was having a quite severe headache,
Okay.
and I was really tired. So I was having a lot of fatigue.
Yeah.
It felt like I needed to sleep all the time. And but I was still like capable of doing stuff,
Yeah.
and I was not that serious about it actually. I was like, okay, I think this is like when you get sick and things just you just need some time and then you're fine. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So and then I think I was slowly getting a bit better, but I was still like not functioning well. So
Yeah.
I needed to like step back and just stop working for a period
Yeah.
and just kind of focusing on taking it easy and slowly introducing small things
Yeah.
and then I think maybe like 6 months after the
Yeah.
accident, I was slowly starting to get back to work again.
Okay.
But at the same time, I was maybe like rushing a bit. I was like, I need to get back to the life I had and I
Yeah.
need to function like 100%. So I mean, slowly starting to get worse actually.
Okay.
And I needed to drop out of work again. And I was in that period where I was trying to find a lot of things that could help. So
Mm.
a lot of different, so I mean, my doctor was not capable of helping.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of other things I could like pay for and then get some help. But
Yeah.
there was not really anything that really helped.
Yeah.
Uh, and that,
What in
yeah.
that 6 months had you tried seeing a lot of doctors, or was it only once you after that 6 months when you tried to go back to work that you were exploring like
I
things?
think maybe like the first 6 months was a lot about like understanding what was happening
Hmm.
and also maybe starting to take it a bit more serious or like
Mm.
understanding, okay, how can I start to find solutions or start to kind of work with. I could also feel like my mental health was getting a bit worse and
Yeah.
I was getting quite depressed and things like that. So I think maybe that was kind of my main focus in the beginning, actually. Um, but for me, it was really, really difficult to actually find something that was helping, or everyone was just telling different things. So I was getting more and more confused actually about what to do,
Yeah.
and using a lot of money on it and things like that. So
Yeah.
that was a long process of
So yeah. So did you find anybody that was able to kind of tell you what was happening or what you needed to focus on?
Mm. To be honest, I don't think there was anyone who was capable of telling me
Yeah.
what to do like the first year. It was just a lot of like being on my own.
Yeah.
And I also was a bit like really wanted to be independent in the beginning. So I was like not telling my parents much about it, and more like I can do this myself and I can figure it out. But I actually ended up like using all my energy or even more to search for help, or yeah,
Mm.
things like that. So that ended up being very stressful.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's exhausting, the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
search. Yeah.
Um, and then just like I think maybe during, I could feel like I had this thing in my mind saying that, okay, I will be sick for a year and then everything will be good. So it was because I've heard a lot of people having a concussion and then like maybe for a year and then they can get back to life again.
Yeah.
Was really setting my mind up to like, okay, this summer I will be back and I will get better.
Yeah.
And like the closer I got to the summer, the
Yeah.
worse I was starting to get.
Mm.
So I was starting to be, it was a lot about like my headache were getting worse,
Okay.
my fatigue was getting worse. I had really, really low energy,
Yeah.
so, so like sleeping all the time, and my nervous system was also like completely not functioning. So
Yeah.
kind of, I was kind of in that survival state for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, and then during the summer, I was getting more and more stressed out, and I was trying more and more like things that could work,
Yeah.
and then suddenly I was actually not capable of, like I was living by myself, and
Yeah.
I couldn't at that point it was like, okay, I just need to wake up and I just need to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner, go to
Yeah.
sleep. So that was kind of just kind of surviving.
Yeah.
Uh, and that were just getting less and less things I was capable of doing. So
Yeah.
in the end, I ended up moving back to my parents, and they needed to help me because I was not functioning at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then at that point, like after a year, that was kind of my lowest point where I was moving back to my parents and was still getting worse
Mm.
and was getting really depressed as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was like all of the things that were making me happy in my life were just slowly disappearing, and
Yeah.
I was getting really scared and having a
Yeah.
lot of anxiety as well. So um, and I think maybe it was in the end of September, beginning of October last year, where I had my um, worst period, because I was kind of just from one day to another collapsing, where I was like having this like really severe pain, and
Yeah.
I couldn't get out of my room. I was in this dark room, and I like sounds, people around me, everything was just way too much. So I was just, rolling from one side to the other in the bed, and was just, I couldn't even listen to anything, or just in silence
Yeah.
and darkness. And I was even getting scared of eating, because I was like, what if this is gonna make me feel worse?
Yeah.
So that was a really, really terrible place to be in. And I think I was in it for maybe like 2 months.
Wow.
I was just laying in my bed, and my mom needed to kind of take a break from work so she could kind of take care of me.
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
was all the time looking for that I was eating, or like just kind of surviving in that
Yeah.
state. And she was also getting really scared and desperate,
Yeah, I can
like
imagine.
find
Yeah.
any help. So,
Yeah.
and even my doctor was like, I don't know what to do. It was like we were just on our own to figure out what was going on, because there was no brain damage or
Mm.
they couldn't see anything. I was just looking completely normal. I was
Yeah.
getting a scan at the hospital, and everything was just fine.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling fine,
Yeah, it didn't feel like that.
so it didn't. Um,
Yeah,
so
and I mean, you must have been quite terrified at that time, like about the future. I mean, what was there anything that you can remember, like thinking at that time, or any hope, or yeah, I mean, what was that like?
I think I lost hope in that period a lot, because
Mm.
when the system not even can help you, and you can feel like your parents are just like they don't know what to do,
Mm.
being really scared as well. It's
Mm.
like, okay, I'm not capable of doing anything myself, so should I just, like, how long should I be laying like this? And
Yeah.
kind of, because I've been feeling for a year that I'm just getting worse, so
Yeah.
what's next was
Yeah.
kind of my question.
Yeah.
Uh, and I went into that spiral where my thoughts were really like, it was just all about my mind being in that survival mode, that
Yeah.
everything was separate, and I didn't have any hope in that period. So the only hope I was having was that my mom was just checking in with me like once a day, where she was like, okay, now I have tried to contact these people and maybe they can help. And that was kind of my
Mm.
small hope every day, to kind
Yeah.
of believe that it would get better. But it was very long days, and it didn't feel like 2 months. It felt like a year, where I was just like
Yeah.
in a waiting position and
Yeah.
have basically lost everything in that period. So that was kind of a small death, I felt like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's really intense. But
Yeah,
then on the other side, which I think we'll go towards now, it's like reflecting back on my own journey as well. It was exactly that most horrific period where I lost all hope, and I just felt like I was dying, and in one sense wanted to die every day because it was just so hopeless. Then from there, I felt like things start to shift, you know.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I feel like we need to enter that space of hopelessness, and then there's a almost like a rebirth on the other side, when some little spark starts somewhere. So
yeah,
yeah, maybe how did things start to change out of that really tough period for you?
yeah. So I remember quite clearly that I had one day where I was I tried every day, even though I was not capable of it. My mom held me, and I would try to get just out of bed for like a few minutes,
Yeah,
maybe just get outside, get some air, and slowly just trying to do small things, maybe like sit outside for 30 seconds or something like
yeah,
that. And I was trying to do that every day. Then I had just one day where I was like, I didn't feel like going up. I didn't feel like doing anything.
yeah,
Uh, just and I was not capable of sleeping as well in that period. So that was really like I was just feeling like I was completely out of myself.
yeah,
Uh, and then and I think my mom could see maybe in my eyes. I remember quite clearly that we were just looking in each other's eyes, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's
yeah,
so hard. And she um I went just downstairs, and I was just laying in the sofa, so I was not in the same room all the time. And um my parents were just they have tried everything,
yeah,
and my stepdad, he was in contact with some people in South Africa
yeah,
who and he had a healer, which was I mean, I think they were all desperate, and for him, that was like, okay, I have to try this.
Yeah.
So he had a friend who was taking a picture of me to this healer guy, and he was just looking at it and could see that I was completely blocked from my neck and head, and that was without knowing anything about me.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like the pain was in my head and my neck
Yeah.
area. And he was starting to work on healing me from a small place in South Africa.
Yeah.
And
Where
I
was it?
mean, I can't remember where it was.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but I think it was maybe in the area of Stellenbosch outside.
Okay. Yeah.
And I just remember that for me, I was so desperate. And then my stepdad, he was sitting with me and he was like, this guy, he said that you completely blocked up here and he has tried to heal you. And from today or like tomorrow, you will start to get better and it will only get better.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, I was just like, okay, I have to believe in this
Yeah.
because I don't have any choice.
Yeah.
I was completely open for everything,
Yeah.
and like vulnerable. So, and later on that day, they were in contact with um, a physio from
Tracy.
South Africa, Tracy,
Yeah. It's for those who, yeah,
was
want to know, I've
who
interviewed.
you have also been working with.
Yeah, exactly. I've spoken with
Mm.
Tracy. Just for anybody who's watching this who wants to know, Tracy was the physio who helped me a lot as well. So yeah, you can check out that interview. I'll maybe link it. But yeah.
Yeah, and she met my stepdad by accident in South Africa when he was there, and he was telling about my story.
Yeah.
Um, and she said she might be able to help me. So I was having a conversation with her online,
Yeah.
um, completely in different parts of the world, and I remember that I was not even capable of looking in the screen. I was just like sitting like this, and she was just looking at me, trying
Yeah.
to talk to me. And she said that the first thing she wanted to help me with was like helping me to feel safe again.
Yeah.
And she worked with me maybe for an hour, and for like 2 months, I couldn't even talk to my parents for like 5 minutes, and then
Yeah.
they kind of needed to go again. And we ended up talking for an hour, and I think I could already feel after like one session with her that something has shifted.
Yeah.
It's like really mind-blowing, and I think that was the shifting point because I think it was more about that someone was seeing me as not like the concussion, but more like who I am.
Yeah.
And she could understand me and everything she said. I was like, that's completely how I feel right now.
Mm. Mm.
So maybe that was already making me feel safe in my nervous system to
Mm.
have someone who could understand me and see me
Yeah.
exactly what I was at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Um,
that's such a relief. Like if I think back to my first session with Tracy as well, just to have somebody that can just understand what you're going through or kind of be able to hear you as you are. And it's not like you're trying to, yeah, explain to somebody what you're going through or something like that. I think that's such a relief
it
in
was,
in everything. Yeah.
and I think she was the first professional who didn't push me out to do
Mm.
things I felt comfortable doing.
Mm.
And everyone else were like, you have to do this training, you have to do that. And
Mm.
it was all things where I needed to push my boundaries a lot. And that was
Yeah.
really tough. And she was like, you don't have to do anything
Yeah.
to start feeling safe again. Start looking out of that sleeping glove you have on, or
Mm.
just I had some like noise canceling headphones on like 24/7,
Mm.
trying to just take them off a bit. And in the beginning, she was just, you can do this. And I was just like, okay, I'm just trusting her completely. And I will just kind of do whatever she says because
Yeah.
that's my only option right
Yeah. Yeah.
now. And I'm
That's
glad
Yeah. And that's why I think going back to like that period where we just lose all hope is so important, because that's then where we fully trust any spark that comes after that, like trusting that healer. Where if you think in the past, you probably would have just been like, oh, well, why would I believe this? Or the same thing, with Tracy, where
Yeah.
we're so open to anything that can heal us that now we have that trust where we just fully, and then I think that's so important, that kind of deep level of trust. But I think it only comes after being absolutely broken into pieces, by the challenge,
Yeah. Because you don't have, yeah, you don't have anything left, and you're
Yeah,
like, why not try it? Because I don't have any other options. So
yeah, exactly.
I think that was a big shifting point. And I mean, I was also on like painkillers and medication. And I
Yeah.
mean, after like 2 sessions with her, I was capable of just cutting all painkillers,
Oh wow.
which was quite like crazy because
Yeah,
that was like my safety thing. So,
yeah,
uh, and then it was all about starting from scratch, like this blank paper where you just have to build up your life
yeah,
at the beginning. And then it was all about doing things that were valuable for me,
yeah,
things where I could start feeling love, I could start feeling joy, I could start feeling things that was making me happy and was giving me some like dopamine or serotonin or
mm,
things like that for my brain to kind of shift a bit.
yeah,
Um, I remember my first kind of thing I needed to do after laying in bed for 2 months was going out and trying to make my own cup of tea.
yeah,
That was the first step. And I remember my body was just reacting like going completely in survival mode, and my headache would start coming up and things like that, like really bad. But I was like, okay, I will just try to do this. I can always stop. So I made my first cup of tea, and I just remember that like I think that's like maybe the point in my life where I have been most happy. And that was like a really big joy just sitting and be capable of making my own cup of tea. And I remember I was just
yeah,
having like, heavy tears and really like enjoying every second of that cup of tea. So I mean,
yeah,
it's also the kind of other side of it is you start getting really grateful about all the small things in life because you
yeah,
have tried to lost everything or lose everything. So
yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, that you can that's what's so beautiful about coming out on the other side, is that you can find so much appreciation in such a small thing, like that you
mm,
probably never thought you'd be able to do again, just have a cup of tea. And I remember even for me, just going for like a walk down the street, it was just so like it's like a
yeah,
whole nother world.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm. And just from there on, I was working with Tracy for maybe like once a week or maybe more, and I could always contact her. I could always call. I had this
Mm,
safety person in her in the beginning, and I
mm,
think that was really important
yeah,
um to fully trust one person and just
yeah,
working with that. And in the beginning, it was all about getting some kind of contact to my body again. So I
yes,
mean, I was completely like blocked, couldn't feel anything. So it was a lot about just dropping into my body, working with all the sensations coming up, and
mm,
um and also um starting to learn to work with my pain and
mm,
not being scared of it, but kind of
mm,
trying to accept where I'm at. So that was a huge shifting point.
yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So, so when you were working with Tracy, what were there any like specific techniques or practices, or just exercises that you can remember that was really played a big role in kind of, yeah, for you?
So I remember there was a lot of, I think the first step I was taking was that I needed to kind of kind of look at my values
Mm.
and how I wanted to live my life in 10 years.
Yeah.
Um, so look at like what is actually important to me and what means a lot to me and how would I like to live my life. So trying to work with that and trying to see, am I actually going in that direction?
Mm.
Actually doing other stuff to that maybe doesn't serve me right now.
Yeah.
So because in that period I was like, I couldn't take any decision.
Mm.
We were talking a lot about what's the word? Agency.
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot about like being capable again to, because I've lost all of that like trust around um I mean myself and also people around me. So being
Mm.
capable of taking decisions and
Mm.
trust that I was doing the right thing
Mm.
was maybe like the biggest thing for me to work with.
Mm.
So because I could be like, oh, should I make a cup of tea or should I brush my teeth? And I was like,
Mm. Mm.
what to choose? And maybe I should only choose one. And it was like
Yeah.
so difficult in the beginning. So that was all about like choosing things that was making me,
Yeah.
yeah, giving me value in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a couple like that should word is such a dangerous word because it's that belief in that, yeah,
Mm.
what's the right choice? What should I be doing? Is this right? Is that right? And I think it's more of a shift into kind of just feeling, yeah, what you more want and what, feels right for you. And then our mind is trying to go into should. Is it
Yeah.
that? Is it that? So what came up for you with the values like that felt
Uh,
like a big thing, like, yeah, maybe some big changes that you wanted to focus on or some,
so
yeah.
I think like the first thing it was like a paper where I needed to mark or like circle the things that were important for me. And there was some different kind of themes.
Mm.
So there was one where it was like caring for myself.
Mm.
And I remember in that period, it was a lot about accepting myself as I am.
Yeah.
I think because I was trying so hard to get back to the person I was,
Yeah.
it was so difficult to move on because maybe that person I was not really serving me.
Yeah.
Um, so it was a lot about actually changing my whole way of living and being,
Mm.
which was really like crazy when you think about just having a concussion and then you actually need to think about like how you have lived your whole life and how you
Mm.
needed to change things.
Yeah.
And that was also because I was also like getting symptom of PTSD as well. So that
Mm.
was also a big part of it, like working with traumas from when I was little and things like that.
Yeah.
So that played a big role in it
Yeah.
as well. That concussion was kind of the last thing my nervous system was capable of handling. And then it was
Yes.
like, okay, now I can't do anymore. So
Yeah.
there
I,
was,
I think that's such an important realization. It was the same for me. It was such a focus on COVID for so long. It was like, oh, I got COVID, and then my whole nervous system went haywire and all of that. And it was and Tracy helped me with this as well. It was realizing that it was way more about that being the last straw of a whole kind of long time of repressing parts of myself, trying living inauthentically, kind of having some, traumas in the nervous system, anxiety, all of these things that were just stuffed down. And yeah, I think that's so important because so often we get focused on that last straw and then trying to understand everything about a concussion and why that led to all of this. So I think looking at the longer term picture is such a important shift, for us. Yeah.
and I think that's also like in the beginning, just getting knowledge about that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So for
exactly.
me, it was a lot about just having like getting informations
Mm.
because suddenly like it makes sense where nobody was capable of helping me because
Mm.
it was not just a concussion, it was actually my nervous system that was reacting from maybe just kind of a lifestyle
Yeah. Yeah,
way I
exactly.
have been living my whole life. So it actually happened way before the concussion.
Yeah.
that's quite important to know that there's a lot of stuff to work with,
Mm,
and maybe the concussion is actually the last thing I need to work with because there's a lot of other
mm,
factors playing in.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that was also a big like, whoa, okay,
Mm.
where to start and
Yeah, it can
uh,
feel a bit overwhelming. Like I remember for
yeah.
myself, it was like once I also started to realize that it was way more about these patterns of being and my personality and all of that. And
Mm,
it was a bit overwhelming at first. I was like, wow, how am I going to deal with all of this? But
mm,
I mean, yeah, I think just from sharing from my own experience, it's like you don't deal with it all at once, but just that realization is such a good step in the right direction. It's like you have to see it all, and then it, life will lead you along step by step.
exactly. I think it's the next thing was trusting
Mm,
the uncertainty,
mm,
which was, I mean, we were starting to do these kind of trauma release exercises, which was also in the beginning.
yeah.
So that is leading back to what we talked about before, like what exercises works.
Yes. Yeah.
And we were starting to work with trauma release. So it was more about getting the signals from my body instead of
Mm,
trying to think about everything and needing an answer.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
and words and images and things like that were starting to arise and come up.
yeah.
So I worked more about like my concussion, no, what's it called? Like the
You're
uncon-
unconscious.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um yeah, we work with that a lot. And I remember the first word that came up for me was trust.
Oh
So that
yeah.
was, and that is still a word I'm working with.
Yeah.
So I mean it's also about like that things weave in together, and it's not
Mm,
about you have to work with that word and you have to work with that. It's kind of all fits together in some way.
mm, mm,
Uh, but that was a lot about starting to trust that things would unfold in the way they should.
yeah. I think
And
that's such a powerful foundation for everything else because it's like I think that's what's missing for so long. Or this was the same for me. It's like when you don't, if you can't trust anything, then we're so caught up in that survival state. Whereas once something opens us up, and then specifically that trust in the body as well, I think, like you said, like going more into trusting your body's signals rather than having to live in the mind and try to fix the body. I guess this was like something that I had to realize was like, it's okay. I trust my body. It actually can do this. I don't understand how, but it's a body is a self-healing mechanism. It's like you get a cut and it heals itself. And yeah, you just kind of need to find ways to support that in some sense.
exactly. So yeah, exactly. Understanding that, telling myself all the time, it was also about like mantras and brain
Mm,
training, like
yeah.
my body's fine, telling myself every day that my body was fine,
Yeah.
I'm safe, and all of that, like this is not harming my brain and things like that were also like I exercise. I work with a lot,
Mm,
so a lot of different like brain training exercises, which helped me a lot in the beginning because I needed to kind of tell my mind in some way all the time, like this is, I needed to make these new pathways in the
yeah.
brain so that I could start to understand that I was actually safe and my body was capable of healing itself.
Mm,
So I didn't need it to fix everything.
yeah.
Um,
I
and
think
that was
that's such an important part. Like I use that a lot as well. Was like just what was important for me was like doing it from a place of love, even for the part of my mind that was out of control. Whereas in the past, I'd try to fix it by like trying to get rid of it, where it was like, okay, there's a part of my brain and my nervous system that's just doesn't understand, is trying too hard to fix everything. And that's okay too, but it just needs to kind of learn to trust. And it's like,
yeah.
yeah, I had to do a lot of work around that as well. It's just like,
Mm.
I remember like just talking to myself. I used to journal, record videos, and just be like, it's okay. It's okay. And that's like that forming new pathways of like that process can come up, but then there's a different way of responding to it than in the past, where like the stress process comes up and then you can be like, oh, and that's okay, I'm actually
Yeah,
safe. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So a lot about, and all of these like exercises were all about feeling safe.
Yeah.
So I think that's also quite important to know that for me in the beginning, I was thinking a lot about like, should I take those like breaks to like should I do
Mm.
stuff? Like, is there anything that's I need to do the right
Mm.
thing? And I think
Yeah.
it was an important role for me was just about feeling safe. It was not about taking a break where I should not like stimulate myself or something like that.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
a lot of people think that it's all about like saving energy in some
Yes.
way.
Yes, exactly.
But I just figure out that it was not about that. It was all about feeling safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's also quite important thing to be aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar thing with trying too hard. Like the pacing, that's what I used to call it, was like trying to perfectly manage my energy and then actually getting that's just fueling the stress out state of the nervous system, because you're like, I'm not getting it right. And then I would get so stressed out when I would do something a little bit too much, and then it would be like, oh, this is the end of the world. And then it's like, yeah, just kind of finding a more intuitive, what feels right approach more than this like perfect energy management, because that's what's so stressful is trying to. I remember this was like this chasing perfection was the only way I was ever going to heal, and that was impossible.
And I
Yeah.
think that's also like what I have heard about, and by seeing like Raylan's videos
Mm,
and listening to you, seeing your videos, is all about like that a lot of people getting um long-term like nervous system or like illness um is that we have this like tendency, or like our
mm.
personality is a lot about like being perfect, or like this
Yeah, yeah,
perfectionism. um so I think that's also a lot about just being aware of all these personality or like patterns, thinking
mm.
patterns.
Yeah, exactly.
Try to see if maybe in some periods in your life they have been working for you,
Mm,
or you have to just throw everything up in the air and just kind of figure out like what is
mm,
working for me right now. And
mm.
um and then just, I mean, even talking about it can feel a bit overwhelming.
Mm.
I think it's just all about like taking these small steps, and maybe also, as we talked about a lot about compassion, just
Yeah,
all the time telling yourself, or maybe just having this like compassion through all of the things you do, maybe,
yeah, 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 exactly.
because we are not perfect
Yeah.
people.
And
So
I think that's where compassion can start, is in realizing that we're not perfect. And once we finally accept that, that's like, it feels like a starting place for compassion, where it's like, okay, I'm not perfect and that's okay. And now can I actually just have compassion for myself as just a human who's trying their best? I remember that's actually the first time I started to like, because it's interesting. I've had people ask me, because I talk so much about compassion in some of my meditations and that. But I remember when Tracy first introduced me to compassion, I was like, I can't do this. This doesn't make any sense. I can't get in touch with that feeling. And it was something like guided meditation, where someone was like, you're trying your very best, and like you just need to realize that you're going through a tough period. Like this is difficult, and just acknowledge that within yourself, that this is challenging, this is difficult, and you're trying your best, you're really trying hard, and you're not perfect. And I feel like that acknowledgement of not being perfect, that it's like you're not going to get it all right, you are just a human, and it's difficult, but that willingness to try is like essential, because also we can go into kind of like a giving up, which, like we spoke about, we have those periods. But yeah, for me, that's where the compassion started to open up, was it's like, okay, I'm not perfect, and that's okay. And from there, I could actually start to make a lot more progress, because I was now, you're more loving like yourself and realizing that it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think maybe for all of us, I mean, for me and you, what we have been talking about was also that maybe what made our, like, where we ended up being like collapsing were
Yeah.
also because were trying to get everything perfect. And
Yeah.
that kind of were just stressing the nervous system a lot, because I
Yeah.
mean, just remember I had like alarms for everything I do. So
Yeah.
like a very extreme period where I was trying to pace, it was like maybe I was um trying to I was capable of doing something for 5 minutes, then
Yeah.
I needed to rest for 20 minutes,
Yeah. Yeah.
do something for 5 minutes again, resting. And I
Yeah.
mean, that is like the biggest present you can kind of be in, because it's like
Yeah.
your own present.
Yeah.
Present.
Exactly. Exactly.
A present. Present.
That's like, it's definitely not a present.
No.
It's quite the
So
opposite.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I just need to quickly plug in my laptop. I'm running out of battery.
yes.
Sorry. It's not very professional of me. Okay, cool.
Mm.
So then maybe let's talk about like how things continue to unfold for you. So you started to have a bit more trust in your body. You started to get in touch with a bit more compassion. You started to break out of your own mental prison slash present. What else happened?
Um, so I think what happened was that I was starting to be more capable of doing things that I like doing. So I
Mm,
think that was maybe the next step was like um just starting to get my life back a bit.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I could feel that a lot of things changed. Also, like my mental state changed, of
Mm,
course, because um and in the beginning it was a lot about introducing like walking again,
mm,
being in nature, and just slowly uh introducing things like being a bit social again.
yeah,
Everything needed to happen very, very slowly.
yeah.
Um, but for me, like when you have experienced just being, I think when you're going from that state where you're not capable of doing anything,
Mm,
just small things in the beginning feel really big for you.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's also quite important to be aware of that maybe when you are in a bad state in your life and you're like, or you are sick as we have been,
Mm,
you think maybe this is not possible, like I can't do this, or like how should I
mm,
build myself up from scratch.
mm,
I think an important thing is that, as we said, you are capable of much more than you think you are.
yeah, yeah.
So I think there was in that period a lot about getting pain doing stuff, knowing
Mm,
that I was getting pain,
mm,
and slowly it started to get less, the pain.
yeah.
And that was all about for a long time working with the pain.
Mm,
um, and I started to watch your videos as well,
mm,
and Raylan's. And I think that was also where I was getting more into meditation
okay.
and mindfulness as well.
Yeah,
So for a long period, I worked very much with just sitting with what was there,
yeah,
and um, and actually all of the things about accepting where I was in that state,
Mm.
being in the present moment and not
Mm.
in the future.
Yeah.
Um, and that is, I think maybe that is some of the things that has helped me most, or where I could feel something has changed quite fast is um is working with being in the present moment.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And I could kind of practice that with the meditation
Mm.
and slowly getting more into it and getting more aware, and
Mm.
then use it in my daily life as well.
Mm.
I think that was huge, and um, I think there was something about that, some really um, important thing I need to remember.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing with meditation, I think, like you said, it's this was the same for me, and this is why I talk about it so much, is that it was the more I came more into the present moment, so many of the problems of where I was at kind of disappeared, and then I could actually start to do more things because, for example, if I was going for a walk or something, it was so using so much energy, and it was so draining to be constantly thinking about what is this going to lead to in the future, where am I going to be at the end of the day because I'm going for a walk now, or in the past, last time I went for a walk, it sent me into this big flare up of symptoms. So that's going to happen again. And I was personally only able to break out of that through a lot of meditation and becoming more and more kind of aware and present of my own thoughts and processes. And this is why I feel like it's such a important aspect of the journey, because it's just becomes a more of a supportive cycle eventually, where you can go and do something and you can stay present and you can enjoy it way more than you could in the past. And then at the same time, you get all of those kind of, it's a big deal that you're able to do this. And then that becomes a support. Like it just becomes a positive cycle as opposed to this kind of negative cycle that we were stuck in for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you said, it's still, if I think back to my own journey and when I try to talk about it with people, there was a period where I knew I was going in the right direction and it was like a positive cycle. But there's still, like you said, the pain still comes up. You just
Mm.
you just have a different way of dealing with it now. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, the pain comes up, but now I can work with it. I can accept it. I can feel into it. And then it's continues to support you.
I think like what I wanted to say before was, I think I had a long period in the beginning where I felt quite stuck because I was doing stuff because I wanting to feel better doing it.
Mm, yeah.
So it was a lot about learning to go for a walk, but not having the intention of feeling better afterwards.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that was like a long period where I had to work with that because that was stuck in my brain. So I remember I was having like my mom needed to tell me like every day, you have to just go for a walk because you enjoy walking and not because you have to feel better. And I
Mm,
remember, like every day I was like, what was it I should remember? Because my brain couldn't remember,
right. Right.
because it had that intention every time that everything I needed to do was to feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like a big resistance of feeling the pain, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think that was a huge shifting point for me, actually, was trying to live my life and not being controlled of the pain,
Mm, mm,
symptoms,
mm,
that I kind of needed to take back my life, and then the symptoms needed to adjust by that.
mm,
And I think that's a huge shifting point, to kind of learn to do stuff because I enjoy it and not
mm,
because I needed to feel better.
mm.
Mm. So
Yeah,
I,
yeah, I think that's so important because, yeah, it's like you said, we don't realize um, how stuck we get in that kind of mindset of I need to do this for a reason to manage, my pain and my symptoms and stuff. Whereas it's just like, I love how you said your mom said it, like go for a walk because you enjoy walking, not because it needs to do something, for
it's
you. which is
Yeah,
such, it seems like such a small perspective shift, but it's really important. Yeah.
I think that was like, it's just one of the things I remember shifted a lot, because
Mm,
I was like, every time I did something, I was still getting flare-ups. I
mm,
was still feeling worse, and then I was getting frustrated, and I was getting sad and scared every time,
yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like a bad cycle just carrying on. But as soon as I started to kind of setting the intention that you don't, it's not about feeling better, it's about
Mm,
doing things that you like to do, even though
mm,
it's pain.
yeah.
And starting to work with that, it's not about avoiding the symptoms.
Yeah.
Um, that was a huge shift for me. And then it's not about avoiding the symptoms, and then it's all about working with them when they arise, kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so I think that was maybe where things shifted a lot for me,
Yeah.
was that period.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. Like I remember for me as well, it was like, yeah, doing things that you want, and then the symptoms still come up, but it's not about avoiding them anymore. It's about, I used to start to think of it as an opportunity. I like, this was one of the things I was like kind of trying to retrain my perspective on. I was like, every time I get symptoms, like instead of responding like, oh no, now that walk wasn't a good idea, it's like, yes, I need symptoms actually. Like symptoms need to be here, because this is the only way that I can retrain my system to not be afraid of symptoms anymore and to not try
Yeah.
to fight against them. So then I would sit there, and this is when I would do a lot of the compassion work, was just like, okay, cool, this is what's here right now, and
Mm.
this is actually an opportunity. And the more I did that, it actually works, like it started to become my baseline response without even trying. Like anything that we train
Like,
ourselves to do, it just starts to get locked in. So yeah, it's
yeah.
it's
I,
quite
I
powerful.
think that's, yeah, exactly. And I think that's the same with the meditation. When you start using that,
Yeah.
that the meditation practices is also not about feeling better afterwards.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's also quite important, because I also used that for a long time. Just,
Yeah.
okay, but maybe if I'll do this practice after walking, maybe the pain will be less.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's not about that. And
Yeah.
I think it's really important to,
Yeah, that's a really important point. Specifically with meditation, like I used to do that so much, and then I see it with people that I talk with or work with, that's one of our main challenges with meditation, is we're using it to give us something, and then it's
mm,
like it's the same cycle where it's like, this was a big shift that happened for me, and this is how I try to share it with people now, is that like meditation is an opportunity to just open up to what's here as it is and just explore that without any kind of judgments or anything. But then also realizing that that part of you that wants to use meditation to get rid of the symptoms or to reduce the pain, it's very innocent, it's very natural, right? It's like, okay, of course that part of us is going to be there, but and we don't even need to fight against that part, but we just need to see that living from that space is not serving us. It's
it's
like, yeah, it's
that's,
something else in our experience, but it's not what we need to be as our, yeah. Yeah.
and I also think that's where the compassion comes in again, to
Yes.
that you can't do all these things perfect and right, and
Yeah.
that's it's like it's all weaving together in some way,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where it all works out, in the end, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that was a big period for me to kind of be aware of that. And I mean, and then it was all about working with mindfulness. So that was also what Trace is helping me with, to was joining a course she had where it was also about being in the present moment and not being in the future. And I
Mm,
think that was also a lot of the helping all of the anxiety coming up. So I had a lot of anxiety pain,
mm,
which had always something I was getting before an event. There
right.
was like this fear of the symptoms coming up. And when I started to figure out that it was actually the anxiety who was playing this game with me,
Mm, mm,
uh, I was kind of starting to work with being in the present moment, um and I could feel that that was really helping me with the anxiety.
Yeah.
So that could also be just really like, so I mean, mindfulness is all about like being curious and
Mm.
being, I mean, uh, maybe in some ways focused, or I mean, in
Mm.
some ways not, but it's a lot about when you do things, you do that one thing and you put your focus on it.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
and then you can kind of feel that everything else is not in your mind, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Mm.
So it was all about like when I was making my cup of tea, I was really just was not using my phone while doing it. It was like one thing at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And um and then it was also to I think another point of that was also like using my senses a lot,
Mm. Mm.
which I think is also, yeah, just knowledge to get that when you use your senses, you get in your body and out of your mind.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, it's like
that helped me.
a great grounding as well. You know, it's like when we're so up in the head, just putting attention in each one of the senses can be like just okay, just ground you in the present, right? It's like grounding in like, okay, what's here, that doesn't matter what all the thoughts are saying. Those thoughts aren't in the visual field. It's not in the smells. It's not in the sensation. It's like it's just a interpretation of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that was also a big thing was this like in the beginning it felt really, really overwhelming staying in my body, feeling my symptoms. And I think maybe
Mm.
that's also a quite important thing because when you have trauma related things stuck in your system, your nervous system,
Mm.
sometimes it can feel very like triggering to sit and just be with what's there,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning, because that's not safe for you in the beginning. It doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
For me, it was a lot about just connecting with the environment around me first,
Mm.
starting to feel safe with sounds again,
Mm.
like my visual field. Um, so all about like using my senses to ground myself.
Mm.
And when that started to work and my nervous system was starting to have more capacity, I was slowly starting to work with what was inside of me. So my
Mm.
sensations, my pain and everything.
Mm.
That was, I think that was a quite important thing for me because in the beginning, when I was trying to work with my pain, sometimes it was getting worse and worse and worse.
Mm. That's a good,
Um,
that's a great point because I get that question a lot from people actually, that it's like when they, you know, I recommend try to feel into the symptoms, try to feel into the sensations. And then it's like, okay, but this is too intense. This is too overwhelming. How do I deal with this? And I think that's a great way. It's like, okay, you want to
yeah,
ground yourself in the sense field, but maybe the body sense, the sensations is a bit too intense. So start with sounds, you know, maybe even start with smells, or even you can start with sensations, but just it doesn't have to be initially your most intense pain sensations. You know, maybe it's the feeling of holding
oh,
a cup of tea. It's like that's still your body sensations, but just feel into your hands the kind of tingles and the warmth, and you know, start with something that
yeah,
feels a little bit easier to feel, because this is something I think I used to do as well. And I think it's, I don't know, there's some modality that works like this as well, where you kind of bounce between the easier sensations, like your hands and your feet, and, you know, maybe your nose, the breathing, and then you
mm,
bounce into the really difficult sensations. You know, maybe it's your worst symptoms, and then you go back to the easier
yeah.
sensation, and then you go back to the difficult sensation. And then you're
So
like,
that's also like, yeah, that's
yeah,
also that like, window of tolerance
yes,
where
exactly.
you kind of need to be working with just getting a bit out of your comfort zone, but you have to kind of get back to your comfort zone again. So you're just not just like pushing your nervous system out where it can't control. So, I mean, I think that's maybe quite important for people in the beginning. For me, that was huge to kind of just work with the environment around me and then slowly getting closer and closer to my pain. And that was also about maybe just, yeah, exactly, just starting with like sensation that were feeling helpful in my body. It could also be, you know, just standing in a shower and feeling like the water just coming down your skin and taking like a foot bath or something like that to kind of get into your body. And then slowly, just very slowly, just going into the pain and maybe just coming back to a place that feels safe or the environment. So working with that is a really good way of practicing. And then suddenly you feel like, I remember that I was trying to work with at some point that I could kind of be with the environment around me, maybe just sitting in nature as we're talking about, while trying to practice working with my sensations as well. So that feeling of being with the whole catastrophe, like you can still feel pain and enjoy the moment. You can still feel pain and look at something nice. It doesn't need to be either you have to just feel comfortable all the time or you have to feel worse. It's really helpful to kind of learn to be with everything that's there. So you can still look at a nice view even though you have pain, and you can kind of be with the pain and the view at the same time.
That's great.
Yeah.
I remember it was a similar realization for me, and I think that's so important, was to realize that my pain could be here, and at the same time I could feel like a smile in my heart or a smile on my face. And it's like in the past the brain was always like, oh, it's one or the other, you know, it's like either I'm enjoying the moment or this is going badly and I need to fix the moment. Where it's like, what if that duality isn't there in the way that the mind thinks it needs to be, where it's like, yeah. And I like it because I didn't initially do it a lot with the external environment, but I think that's a great way to do it as well. It's like something you enjoy, like, you know, a nice picture or a beautiful sunset, and then realize even while you're enjoying that, there can still be pain there. But the ways our mind would usually perceive that would be to say, oh, now I can't enjoy the sunset because there's pain, you know, so now this moment is ruined. Where it's like, we have to start to question those thoughts, basically, because there's all these beliefs and assumptions that just pop up into our head and we believe it, right? Because the mind produces thoughts. It's like, okay, this moment is ruined. And then if that's where I think the meditation and awareness is so key, because if we don't have that awareness of our thinking process, we just believe it. And then we're on the thought train to the next thought, to the next thought. Whereas otherwise it's like, that's not true. You know, here's the sunset, here's the pain. The mind is saying, I can't enjoy the sunset because of the pain, but that's just one thought. What if I just release that thought? And yeah, it's like, just like almost like question, like get this kind of, you know, investigation. Is that really true under kind of our thoughts and our beliefs? Yeah,
Exactly. And also that things are not just black and white. And when you are in a survival state, your mind gets really rigid and you get very hyper focused. So starting to be aware of just maybe also a thing I worked with was seeing options, so that there's not just like one thing or the other thing. It's like you kind of mix it. There's no rules in that, actually. You kind of think out of your small like boxes where your mind likes to be in. And, and I remember for me it was also a lot about that, like, because I was a lot about either I'll do that or I'll do that. So for me it was a lot about, but I can act. For example, seeing a friend on a day where I feel symptoms, for me before was a lot about like, okay, then I have to stay home, because then pain was kind of making the decision instead of just being like, okay, actually I can still be social if that's what I want to do, but I just need to work with being authentic and honest So
Mm,
my friend knows, okay, I'm having pain. I'm not in the best mood today, but I still want to see you.
mm, mm.
And I think that's also a huge thing, is that it's not either one or another thing. There's
Yeah.
different options you can choose.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's really good because also like to mix a little bit of both, because our minds might say like, oh, okay, it's too intense to go and hang out with this friend because I know it's going to socially drain me and I'm not going to have any boundaries, or it's a mistake to kind of stay at home. But what if you do a little bit of both? So it's like you go and you socialize and you hang out with your friend, and at the same time you enforce a little bit of your boundaries, you know? Yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
So hold on, my Wi-Fi is
exactly.
oh,
Um,
Wi-Fi is a bit
yeah, so
bad.
I think that's yeah.
Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, you just it's more your camera that's going a bit like in and out.
Okay. Yeah, yours also, but hopefully it's still people can hear what we're saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, carry on.
Um, okay, I just need to think where we was. So, mm,
Yeah, we can also take a little pause if you want to.
yeah, maybe just yeah, let's do that.
Okay, perfect.
Just to kind of
Yeah, it's often I find it because I do some all right, so we just took a little pause, but I think maybe what we can dive into now is some of the things that feel important to share about the later parts of your journey. So maybe some things that have shifted over the last couple of months, or just, yeah, maybe how things started to accelerate as you got more involved in life again and what's come up for you around that.
yeah. So I think one of the words that comes up for me now is community is like a huge
Mm,
part of healing. So I mean, for me, it was also a lot about being social again,
mm,
and starting to work more authentic with my relationships.
mm,
Mm, So that was huge. And then also um, talking with people who has kind of similar stories, or maybe just not even similar stories, but just in a place where they maybe have been struggling.
mm,
You have some things you can kind of. So I mean, I was joining a mindfulness course with Tracy. She was like facilitating,
yeah,
and then it was with a lot of other people from different places in the world.
yeah,
And that was a lot about like yeah, working with mindfulness, but also just like self-growth, and yeah, just being with what's there. And it was really amazing to kind of see like how deep we were starting to get in the group, because we kind of
mm,
went up quite fast.
mm,
I think I could really feel that feeling of like belonging, or that feeling of being understood by people, or people following my process, and
mm,
sharing during the nice things, and like all of that was huge for my healing.
mm,
Um, so I think that's so important to also kind of see things in another perspective. Like I remember just being there, and I feel like because I don't know anyone who has been through the same as I did.
mm,
So for me, it was like, okay, I have been through something that's really worse, and I'm in a really bad state still, and things like that. And when I talk to other people, it's like, okay, there's actually people who is even worse, or maybe struggling with some other things that I haven't struggled with.
yeah,
So kind of seeing things in other perspectives, and kind of just sharing it with each other was really helpful.
yeah,
Um, and that was just like a word, like community is just a word I've been writing down, because for me that was, I could just feel that kind of deep connection with people was
mm,
very huge part of. like giving me energy and
Mm.
yeah. So I think
Yeah,
that's really
I think that's a really like I think we go through phases where maybe we have to do a lot of work on our own, or like those periods where you're very much in solitude, you're very isolated, and
yeah,
then I remember for myself, like realizing in that time that it's okay that I don't need as much social contact as I'm perceived, because that was stressing me out as well. Was thinking that, oh no, I'm messed up forever because I'm not living the normal human life and socializing and seeing people and stuff. So being okay with that period, but then I really agree as well that then finding periods where you can relate and start to connect with people again is such an important phase as well, and can be so supportive as well when you're just like, even yeah, just hearing other people's stories, realizing that you're not going through this process alone, that there's a lot of, but also like in a healthy way, because there's, you know, if you look on the internet, there's a lot of sharing of stories, but it can become very
yeah,
toxic very quickly in the wrong environment. But in the right environment, it can be very supportive as well, you know.
yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I was also in a lot of like Facebook groups, and because I was searching for that kind of community, and I feel like these things didn't help me because there was a lot of
Mm,
people feeling stuck, and just it's more about like maybe just finding the communities where you feel supportive and you feel like that it's like a place where you kind of are growing together in some
mm.
way.
Yes, yeah.
Um, so that was really huge, and also I think um just lost it.
That's okay. I always find when I lose my train of thought, to like when I really try to get it back, it doesn't work. It's like we're putting our
True.
focus. It's because like we're focusing our mind too much, I think. And then when the conversation just carries on and we just let ourselves, it just pops up again, like what happened
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah,
It's a cool hack.
yeah, it is. But I think that was like one of the things when I was starting to integrate again that was huge.
Mm,
And then also another thing was also trying to change scenery a bit. So
mm, mm,
I mean, for me, I've been living in the same house at my parents' house for almost a year.
mm.
I've been out really just in the area.
Yeah.
So for me was also like starting to get back to the city a little bit, just,
Mm,
this thing about dropping in and out slowly, just and also going out traveling. So
mm.
and then there was where I was meeting you and Tracy. That was a big part of my healing as well, was
Yeah.
like I've been watching your videos for a long time. They have helped me a lot, and Tracy has helped me so much. So kind of being able to connect with you guys in real life was also
Mm,
very big for me, and I think also because I was going out traveling, I was going to South Africa,
yeah.
uh, because I was doing it in kind of a safe space.
Mm, mm,
Again, something where I was kind of just doing something way out of my comfort zone, but in a safe kind of
mm.
space with people I feel safe with.
Yeah.
Then I was capable of doing it, even though it felt scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also like a lot of periods where I could see, okay, I'm actually capable of doing much more than I think I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think that ties back for me just what you were saying earlier about looking for the options in what's happening and the opportunities. When we're ready for it, it's like life will present the opportunities that will be outside of our comfort zone. But if we're willing to be open to it, it will also support us in the right way that it needs to. Right. So it's like
yeah,
at some points in our journey, travel would have felt like, wait, this is way too much for me. But then if you think of how life supported you, it's like when you take that little bit of a leap of faith, things work out. It's like it was with your family, and then as you said, you got to see Tracy and me, and like all these kind of factors that made it a big jump, but at the same time, like in a
Mm.
way that's safe enough for you to kind of expand, and it's incredible how that plays out, where it's like, Angelo, who I talk about quite a lot, would often say this. It's like, when you're really open to it, it's like life will aid you exactly where you need to at the right time. And it's quite, if you're open to seeing it as well, then you just see it more and more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think like the huge thing for me was also maybe just the balance between living in the present moment, but also starting to plan my life a bit again. So I
Mm.
was not in that kind of waiting position, just waiting for
Yeah.
something to happen, like waiting for recovery or,
Yeah.
but just starting to plan my life again as I was already recovered.
Mm.
So I think that was also part of it, was like starting to plan these things I would like to do in the future and seeing is realistic, but still also like having the options that I can also cancel.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like that all these things then I have to do it. It's more
Mm.
about starting to integrate again and starting to get your life back.
Mm.
Uh, and I think that was also like a big part of it, just
Mm.
starting to do things I would like to do and maybe just starting small and then I can always like build up.
Mm.
Uh,
I
So
I think what you said about that waiting, that's such an important, like, later stage thing to drop, because it was the same for me. I think I've made a video about this before. I've spoken about it, where I'm like, at some point you even forget about the idea of recovery, because then you're still putting into the future some place where you need to get to, where you're going to be safe enough to do the things you want to. So, it might sound confusing for people at different stages, but you said it quite nicely there, where it's like, you just stop waiting for, the moment where everything's okay, and you're not going to have, yeah, I think I've said this to you before as well, or whatever. It's like, you're never going to be ready, right? You're never going to be ready for that thing that you want to do. But so you start to do it, but I like how you said it, but you can still kind of, if it's just one day you're just feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and it's just like, okay, maybe I'm not going to go through with that. So it's like, we don't have to go too hard on ourselves, but at the same time, realizing that we're never going to get to this imagined kind of place where we're going to feel so comfortable doing everything. It's like, that's the wrong direction. You kind of, and this is where I like to talk from more nowadays, you have to kind of lean into that. I don't know, I don't know what's going to happen, but what excites me a bit, like, what is, like, I want to do this, like, I want to explore this part of my life, but I'm a little bit scared, but I'm going to take little steps to go in that direction. And then maybe some days it's never going to play out how we expect it to, right? That's what's
no,
key. It's like,
no,
I'm going to go down this path, and maybe some days it brings up a lot, but then that's exactly what needed to happen. It needed to bring up a lot,
exactly.
and then we integrate that.
Mm. And that's again like trusting what's unfolds and like
Yeah.
trusting uncertainty. And I think that's a huge like thing to learn, to like everything is working out as they should.
Yeah.
That's a really nice way of thinking about life in general. I think
Yeah.
not only when you're sick, but just like you will never know what's gonna happen next or like in 10 minutes or an
Yeah.
hour or tomorrow. So I mean, yeah, I think just seeing things like that is really helpful.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to control and trying to plan
Yeah.
everything as they should be, as you want them to be.
Yeah.
Um,
And then, like what you said, like, then life becomes so much more of an adventure and exciting as well, because it's like you said, you never actually know what the next hour is going to bring, the next day, the next week. You can still have intentions, but that willingness to live in the unknown. And it's like you said, you need a foundation of trust, which I think often happens if we've been through some deep shit. Like, I'm thinking I think everybody can implement this into their life in any way. It's just, can I trust a little bit more? But
yeah.
then that kind of, that unknown that we were so scared of, like, if you think of the controlling mind, it's so scared of things going, playing out in some way which we can't control. But that becomes the most enjoyable aspect of being alive, is it's that it's so, I just don't know what's going to happen next. It's like, we can
Mhm.
have these plans still, like, okay, I want to do this, and I want to kind of create this, have intentions, but then we surrender to the outcome that comes out. So it's like this, Angela has said it before as well, which I love. It's like this marriage between intention and surrender. It's like, it's not like you can't have any ideas and creations and like you have to start planning again, like you said, but it can, at the same time, you can still live in the unknown because it is always so mysterious. Like you never know what the next conversation is going to bring, what the next shift is going to be, you know?
And then maybe just seeing the things that's maybe you don't expect something, or maybe you see it as a failure, or maybe you see it as like not what you're wanting it to be.
Yeah.
But just trying to see that as a new opportunity to learn something new, because I mean that's where you're kind of growing, is where things just is not what you expected.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
So that's also a big thing, is like I'm still working at that now, is trying to work with the fear around failing, and maybe just in general the fear about everything. So that's also a huge word, is like fear, like working with fear,
Yeah.
and seeing that as that's like another bodily sensation as everything else is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because especially like around failure, like when the mind, like we do something, we're afraid of failure, but we do it anyways. And then maybe the way that things play out, it's perceived as failure, like something's gone wrong. But for me, always such an helpful inquiry has been like, what am I referencing? Like what has gone wrong? You know, and then it's always something we don't want to feel, basically, because again, nothing can actually go wrong, but things play out a certain way, and then it leads to us feeling something. And then the opportunity there is to be like, well, what has this brought up that my mind is still resistant to feeling? Because that's what it comes down to. It's like this set of circumstances makes me feel this way. And then there's a hidden belief somewhere saying that, and I shouldn't feel this way right now. I should be feeling some other way. Back to that horrible word, should.
Exactly, should. And also like asking yourself like, what is failure? Like, I think that's also something I've used a lot. Like, yeah, just like what is failure?
Yeah.
Because it's
It's
like
just the mental level of the on the situation.
who has
Yeah.
like been telling you that this is failure? Or I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's really important as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Because it really there isn't like there's relative failure, but that's only in reference to the way that things should have gone. You know, it's like the only reason I believe this is a failure is because I believe the outcome should have been different. But if it's like this is what has happened, and and we have that trust, it's like this is exactly what needed to happen. There's something to open me up more in this experience. Can I just be open to it? Like that's the key. And then
yeah,
there can still be difficult times. Like even I have this where it's like, wow, okay, things are really playing out in an unexpected way that I didn't understand. And wow, there's a lot of resistance coming up in the system. But there's that foundation of, and this is what's happening right now. And
yeah,
there's an intelligence in this, right? There's an intelligence in life making these circumstances happen so that something that's coming up in me can be released, or something that's coming up in me can be kind of experienced that wouldn't have been experienced if things hadn't failed in this way, you know?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really true. I
Yeah.
think that's
You've helped me with that.
good.
Good. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what maybe last topic to touch on to, what are you exploring nowadays with the, like you, just to share with people, you recently did a retreat in Denmark, and
Yes.
how did
So
that go?
that went really well. And I think um so right now I'm in a place where I'm trying to kind of just, as I said, planning my life a little bit, but also just feeling into what feels purpose, and what feels right for me right now. And that was maybe just like a test for me, was doing this retreat for my friends.
Yeah.
And it was like all about teaching them some of the things I have learned, to see how that worked out, and also just giving them like a really good experience. And while doing it, I also like figured out that there was like a lot of, all of this doubt about what I wanted to do with my life and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the worry we have in our age. And just seeing that a lot of my um just things that I've always known that I liked doing and I felt good at,
Mm,
just kind of weaving in together, and kind of everything just felt like so right. And like
mm,
also that feeling of purpose, like I'm doing something where I can feel in my heart that this is like the right thing for me to do.
yeah,
And it felt really natural. It was not just all about like planning everything I should do. It was also like
yeah,
what is feeling right in this moment. And
yeah,
um but that's like, it was like a mix of all the things I have learned, and it has helped me. And it felt really, really amazing to kind of give it to someone else and
mm,
share,
mm,
and feeling that it was actually really helpful.
mm,
And I think that's also maybe a part of my journey now, is getting that drive and motivation back. Um,
yeah,
and also I think like for me is also seeing all of what I have learned now as a gift, that it's not like waste of time, but
yeah,
it's like, okay, this is actually what it should be, because
yeah,
now I kind of find what I want to do with my life.
yeah,
And maybe it's a bit of a like a hard way of finding out, but
yeah, yeah. Tracy's used the word baptism by fire, and it's quite
yeah,
good.
true.
It's like bloody intense, but it's incredible gift eventually. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's really it's just crazy to see how things actually plays out when you are trusting
yeah,
the
yeah,
process.
yeah, exactly.
So hopefully I'm gonna do a lot more of those retreats, and it's all also a lot about movement as well. So that's still
Mm,
something I'm working out to find my way in it. But
yeah,
yoga is also something that has helped me a lot to start doing exercise again and just being more active. So
yeah.
um yeah,
Yeah, I think that's an important part of it as well, is like integrating bodily movement can be such a support in kind of just helping to process things as well.
very
You
much.
know, it's like we can often focus a lot on like the mental resistance and the beliefs and the kind of brain retraining and all of that, which has its place. But at the same time, if we can find ways to integrate kind of supportive body modalities like yoga and whatever intuitive movement, it's
Yeah.
such a helpful tool to add into the mix.
Yeah, and just learning that like your body has a lot of cravings, or like things
Mm,
they want to kind of tell you if you listen,
mm,
like being aware. And sometimes they like your body knows things before your
yeah,
mind knows.
yeah,
And that's a big
exactly.
part of all, like trying to learn that.
And that's like to tie back to something you just said earlier, like where that feeling of, when you don't know what to do with your life, especially when you're at this young age, but then you just start to feel all these things that, your natural kind of gifts and there's things that you enjoy doing. And you'd find something where all of that kind of starts to activate. You'd
Mhm.
live less and less from the head of like planning and needing to like know exactly where you're going. And you start to live more and more from that feeling. And then like you said now as well, even the body is actually constantly leading things. The mind comes in second place to kind of, maybe we can plan it and we can kind of make some, ideas around it. But the more we start to live in the body, you see that like when you want to do this or you want to do that, it's actually something in the body that's kind of leading the charge. And the more we can get in alignment with that, the more, the less kind of friction there is against what feels natural for us. And then there's friction and resistance when the mind says no. I like when we doubt ourselves, basically, like you said earlier. Like doubt is the main thing that, like, on the whole spiritual path, the more doubt drops away, everything just kind of becomes a natural unfoldment until we see doubt come up again. Right? It's like,
Yeah,
okay, so things are going right, and then maybe things aren't going right, and that's because there's doubt again, or something like
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's also leads up to like that it's all about like the connection between body, mind, and your
Yeah.
soul or
Yeah.
spirit or whatever you call it,
Yeah.
to kind of be aware of that there's like, I think just a lot of places we're only living up here, and I did before all of that happened.
Yeah.
So for me, just actually connecting with my body and seeing it or feeling it as a part of me, like that was, I mean, huge to, yeah, that's like a whole new world opening up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole different way to live from what we're used to, right? That's something that I found after this whole process, and I've heard Angela talk about it before as well. It's like you almost have to learn how to live in this world again, but in a completely different way.
Exactly. And also you actually are getting a new opportunity
Yeah,
to choose
exactly.
like how you want to live your life.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think that's
it's like that what we spoke about earlier, like that, like rebirth kind of. It's like a
mhm.
whole. It's death in one sense, and that period is so intense. But then on the other side, it's a new opportunity to kind of live. Yeah, you're getting like a second chance in a sense or whatever, like because
Yeah,
you've you've kind of all those fears that were holding us back from doing things that we wanted to in the past, we had to face because of how intense the circumstances were. And then that's when we can see it on the other side that, oh wow, that was actually a gift. It
yeah,
was so intense, but now I only have this opportunity to live in this way because I went through all of that intense stuff, you know.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of a maybe where I'm at the moment, or like just seeing things in a new light, and
Yeah.
to just having a life with more balance, I think, as well.
Yeah.
To So, but of course, there's still coming things up, and but it's all about just working with whatever arises and
Yeah, exactly.
just like living with or like working with the whole catastrophe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like my friend Maggie says, the human condition, it's like as deep as we go, the human condition is still there, but we just learn to integrate, more and more aspects of it. And like,
yeah,
but I like the word
like,
catastrophe as well. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that like balance between different stages in life, or I mean,
Yeah.
integrating, but still like being aware of yourself and
Yeah.
being mindful and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. And like this is where I find I'm at nowadays is like just following what I enjoy, because again, often I would notice my mind getting too stuck in like, oh, am I integrating correctly? Am I going correctly? And then it's like that drops away more and more. But then when things do get a little bit too much out of balance, then it was like a reminder to come back into what feels like um supportive, if things get too
yeah,
out of balance. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So if people want to get in contact with you, how would you recommend, or they want to follow your work?
Yes, so I have like an Instagram I use, and it's something I made recently. So it's like I'm starting to build it up now. And you can kind of follow my process. And maybe, yeah, just following where I'm going, but I
Yeah.
also for like guidance, and you can also like book a session with me, or um yeah, different things I'm offering. So it's called Yo-Yo People, and maybe you can just link it in
I'll
the
put
video.
it in the description. Yeah. And then
Yeah,
you can follow
yeah.
Jules's stuff and see what happens.
I don't know
Amazing.
yet, but hopefully something good will
Well,
happen.
that's why people have to follow you, because
Yes,
if they want to see
exactly.
what's happening,
Yeah, exactly.
only one way to find out. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much for this, Jules. I think people are gonna get a lot out of this. I think it's
Good. I'm glad. I
cool.
hope I hope they will find something that helps.
No, they definitely will. Trust me.
Good.